Look who came to say hi, everybody. Hey, everybody. I'm Sarah, Lonesome Glory, and today I thought we'd try something a little different. I thought that we would do some unboxing of some things that I've picked up here and there, including Vermeer, while we talked about BreyerFest. So specifically when I say let's talk about BreyerFest, I mean let's talk about BreyerFest 2020, Virtual BreyerFest that happened a little over a month ago now, which I think is plenty of time to have kind of decompressed from it, and that I can now kind of unpack what happened and maybe talk a little bit about what went wrong. But I figured if I was going to do that, rather than just sitting here and essentially bitching into the camera, I would have a little more fun with it and spend some time opening a whole mess of horses that I'm surrounded by. All right, so let's get started by opening Crystalline. I'm very excited to see out of the box. Really, I've kind of narrowed it down to 3 things that just didn't work for a virtual BreyerFest. First off were all the technical difficulties, which I'll talk about. The fact that for a lot of people, those of us who are used to actually going and being there in person, BreyerFest was just really bittersweet this year. It wasn't the same. And finally, we missed out, I think, at a virtual BreyerFest on the most important part of BreyerFest, which is the family aspect. But I'm going to talk about all of those in more detail. So, grab my knife here and cut into the tape, which everyone knows is the bane of my existence when it comes to Breyer. So, number 1, why BreyerFest Virtual 2020, what went wrong? Nothing worked. We started opening day, and I don't know about the rest of you guys, but I got up, I had taken the day off of work since I had already taken it off for BreyerFest anyway. I took the day off work and I got up early in the morning here in Central Time to see what would happen at actual BreyerFest opening time at 9 a.m. If anybody is actually twisting these things open, by the way, stop. Get you a pair of toenail clippers that don't pay a lot for them, and then just snip them. It saves you so much time. Anyway, back on track. Anticlimactic is the kind way, I think, to phrase what went wrong. Because at 9 o'clock on the dot, according to my satellite-controlled phone, nothing happened. BreyerFest didn't open. All of my refreshing didn't cause the screen to change. We didn't get anything. The gates didn't unfurl. The mounted police didn't walk us forward. PAL wasn't there. We just watched the same 5 banner ads. And it stayed that way until about 9:15, 9:20. I might be misremembering a little bit because I have kind of blocked out some of that. About 9:15, the BreyerFest is open banner finally appeared. And that was really exciting. Breyer's open. Okay, it took a few extra minutes. That's understandable. But nothing else worked. We had audio, the place we were supposed to have audio, but there were no videos. And I understand that some people maybe didn't have that same issue that I had, but basically I could hear the Breyer people talking, but I couldn't see what they were talking about. So every time they said this pretty horse or this interesting model or this, that, or the other, I didn't know what this they were referring to or what that. All I had was a great big nothing. So the video didn't work. We couldn't get in right away. It's already kind of disappointing because instead of being at the horse park out with a whole bunch of other excited people, I'm sitting in my very quiet, very empty study in my pajamas with my cat who's judging me for being awake. So then I tried to go to the store. Okay, before I talk about all the problems with the store, because those were ongoing, I am going to show you the next one I'm opening, which is Lionel. I love this mold. I'm glad I picked him up. So let's get him out of the packaging. Okay, back to the trusty knife. Anyway, went to the Breyer store. Probably the biggest problem with Virtual BreyerFest, with the actual computer-based part of Virtual BreyerFest, not with just the concept of it itself, but with the actual computer-based version. And that was all of the problems that Breyer had with the store. I saw this described, and I'm not taking credit for this. Please don't think I am. I saw it described in a number of places as Refresh Fest. And that's not wrong. It's probably the most accurate description of Virtual BreyerFest that I saw. Because if you wanted one of those horses, you spent 3 days on the computer hitting refresh and hoping that you could type fast enough, that your internet speeds were fast enough, that you could click quick enough to get a horse before it was snatched out of your cart. And I think that was another big disappointment, is they had absolutely no way in their store to give people time to check out. Once you got something in your cart, it was really just a speed race. And that's a problem. Here he is, by the way. Which means there are a lot of people who just couldn't get the computer to load fast enough to allow them to buy anything. And if they got it in their cart, by the time their computer cycled, it was gone. And as much as I understand that some of the technical difficulties were unforeseen, and some of the technical difficulties weren't Breyer's fault, I do think that not anticipating that people would need time to check out is something that should have been taken into account. I do think that that was a screw up. I am not going to blame all of this just squarely. It's Breyer's fault. Trust me. There are certain things that they just flat couldn't have known. I'm not a coder. I know just enough about tech to be slightly dangerous. But I have worked with other companies that do massive launches, and they give you 5 minutes, 7 minutes to hold a product or a ticket or whatever they're selling in your cart before you have to check out, or before you have that much time to complete the checkout, before it's taken away from you to be given to someone else. And I do think that if Breyer had utilized that technology, if they had utilized that part of the code, Refresh Fest wouldn't have been so frustrating and so disappointing. The next horse I'm going to open, since we're talking about BreyerFest, is my BreyerFest Celebration model. I finally picked mine out, and I want to see him out of the box. So, now that's a blade. Stop that. Cats. I think they're just trying to kill us all. Anyway, on top of all of the refreshing and the products not being there when you tried to pay for it, there's just the constant everything being sold out. And that sucked. So that was really disappointing. And I do think that Breyer could have handled that better. Not all of it. I think that some of the technical difficulties really were beyond their control. The thing that happened with the auction, I don't think they could have foreseen at all. And I think they handled that the very best that they could have by putting it off to make sure that everyone who wanted to bid got the chance to bid. They did get the video fixed fairly quickly, which was great. I watched very little of it, quite honestly. At that point in the weekend, I was just so very disappointed. Not with how it was going, but with some of the stuff we're going to talk about later. I was just disappointed not to be in Kentucky, that I didn't feel it was really great for me to sit there and just dwell on it by watching a lot of the videos or participating in some of the workshops, which I heard were great. So, good for Breyer. I did hear that some of those were great and people did really enjoy them. But I don't do the workshops when I'm at BreyerFest. I don't have time. And it wasn't for me. I actually wound up going with my mom. We've been quarantining. We hadn't seen either of my aunts in a few months, and everybody had been staying away from each other. So we got to spend some time with family, which I thought was a better use of my time. So I can't say particularly about that. I did hear that some of the videos were good, and the ones that I did watch, I enjoyed. I think that Breyer put some effort into that, and that is definitely a good thing. And I do hope that they continue to put that kind of content out for people in the future, because I know that there are folks who can't make it to BreyerFest who enjoy seeing the horses and seeing what goes on. So I hope that Breyer continues to generate that kind of content. I really do think that the what went wrong aspect of BreyerFest has a lot to do with what BreyerFest is actually about, and has a lot to do with the fact that Breyer underestimated the necessity for top-notch technical services for this event. I think they didn't realize that just this many people were going to be watching it, and they didn't get a separate domain for BreyerFest particularly. And I know that sounds kind of silly, and again, I'm not an IT professional, but they were trying to host a multimedia event on what is essentially a store website. And it just seems like they underestimated the amount of traffic they were going to have, which slowed everything down, which caused a number of problems. The trying to limit trips through the store just caused people to have even more frustration. Getting logged out of BreyerFest while you were trying to complete a trip was even worse. It just kind of fell apart. Like, it needed more testing than they gave it. Like, the website needed stress testing. And I get they put this whole thing together in like 4 months or something. What they managed to pull together was impressive. But ultimately, it failed. And that's disappointing. But we did eventually get our horses, which is great. So I want to stop ragging on Breyer's IT, because that's not fair. They had a lot to do, and they did a lot. And continuing to just sit here and gripe about them and say how terrible they are isn't fair to them. It's also not true. There were definitely screw-ups. BreyerFest was definitely not what we would have wanted this year, but the website and the IT design does not hold all of the blame. And as I say that, you're probably going, well, if it wasn't the fact that the website sucked and nobody could purchase what they wanted and things were getting stolen, then what was the problem? Well, that goes into the second and third reasons I told you we'd talk about. And the second reason that BreyerFest was a failure, or that something went wrong with BreyerFest was that really most of BreyerFest was just incredibly bittersweet. I've been going to BreyerFest since 2001. BreyerFest is a family vacation. And Virtual BreyerFest 2020 was nothing like BreyerFest. Speaking of, here is Bellino. He's very pretty. But Virtual BreyerFest 2020, that's not what BreyerFest is really like. We weren't in Kentucky, at least not the vast majority of us. I understand that there are Breyer fans who live in Kentucky, but that's not what I'm talking about. We weren't all congregated at the Clarion and the Horse Park. We weren't waiting in lines. We were waiting in virtual lines, but that's not the same thing. We weren't standing around in the Kentucky heat, which I know I make it sound so appealing, don't I? But we weren't standing around in the Kentucky heat chatting about the horses we wanted to buy or the real horses we gotten to see and meeting new people and making new friends and talking about all of the cool things that were going to happen later that day or that evening, or giving pointers to first timers. We didn't go to the Holiday Inn, to the Clarion, and talk about how crazy and maze-like this stupid hotel is. We didn't go and throw open the door of a hotel room and let hundreds of people come in and shop in our rooms. It was quarantine. BreyerFest was lonely. It was kind of sad. Like I said, opening morning of BreyerFest, of every BreyerFest that I've been to, is loud and crazy. And there's this huge line that starts at the entrance, the BreyerFest side entrance to the horse park. And it stretches all the way around this parking lot and clear through the back lot. And there are police and mounted police, and there are volunteers helping park cars, and there are guys selling drinks, and it is a circus. And you're chatting with people that maybe you've never seen before in your life, but you're so excited to be there, and so are they, and you're all there because of these silly plastic horses. This is the next one I'm going to open up, but I'm really excited about him. And you're all there because of these. So even if you have nothing else in common with the person you're standing next to, you can always ask about their favorite model or what horse they want to buy at BreyerFest. There's always something to talk about. So it's festive and it's fun. And this year, the opening of BreyerFest, like I said, I was alone in my house with my cat. Really, the only upside was that it was cooler because I had the AC blasting. But it was a big disappointment. I think, though, that the major reason that Virtual BreyerFest 2020 went wrong was that even though Breyer encouraged people to participate on social media, and even though they put together the videos they did and the workshops they did, I think the problem was that BreyerFest is wholly and at its core a social event. You know, my aunt at least and my mom always laugh that it's, you know, plastic horse buying frenzy. And it is. We spend a lot of time in line purchasing horses. Sorry to keep my head down. I'm trying to detach him. We spend a lot of time in line to purchase horses. But we also spend a lot of time talking to people and meeting up with people that we maybe haven't seen in a year or 2 years, depending on if they get to come every year. I have people that I consider family that I have never seen outside of the horse park, that I don't see unless we go to Kentucky. And I didn't see them this year. It just isn't the same. I think that's maybe one thing that we have all learned. Isn't he gorgeous? I think that's maybe one thing that we've all learned a little too well this year. The virtual world is not a substitute for the real thing. It just isn't. It's not the same. I think that's what happened to BreyerFest. I'm going to open Vermeer now. I'm not sure I'm going to get to the stablemates. But I think that's what happened to BreyerFest. Everybody wanted it to work. Everybody wanted it to go well. Believe me, I was rooting for it. But it had a fatal flaw from the beginning, which was that as much as BreyerFest is about the horses, real BreyerFest isn't about the models. Real BreyerFest is about the people. So, what does that ultimately mean? Ultimately, what went wrong with Virtual BreyerFest? We weren't there. Yeah, there were technical screw-ups, and I do think that those contributed to it being not as good as it could have been, to it being sad. Because I don't know about y'all, but I was very sad those couple of days of BreyerFest. But I think ultimately what I was sad about was less that I wasn't getting the models, which wasn't a thing. I wound up with what I wanted. It was, I knew where I should have been that weekend when I wasn't there. He's looking good already. Look at that. So what's the take from this? What's the takeaway? Everybody wear your mask and stay home. I don't want to do another BreyerFest like this. I don't want to do another one alone. I want to be able to go to Kentucky next year. I want to be able to see all of you in person. I want to meet a bunch of you guys who have been chatting with me on my channel. And I want to actually see my BreyerFest family. So let's make that happen, okay, guys? Stay home, stay safe. If you've got to go out, wear your mask. Do what we've got to do so that we can overcome this virus and we can be together again. Because that ain't going to happen so long as COVID is hanging around. All right. That's what I have to say about BreyerFest. I didn't quite get everything opened. I will save those for another video since they're all stablemates. And we'll spend just a second. I want to show you just how pretty Vermeer is because I don't know if everybody's gotten to see him yet. This is the new Premier Club horse. Look at those pretty ghost spots. And the sculpting on that tail. He is lovely. Very pretty. I'm going to be very excited to see him in all of the colors. Okay, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I have a couple of fun surprises that are hopefully coming your way very soon. But until then, everybody stay safe. Subscribe below. Let me know what you think, and I will see y'all soon. Bye. Honey, could you not? Could you not cause trouble? You're going to get right in the middle of all of these horses and knock them down. You shouldn't do that. Do you want to say hi? She says, no, put me down.